Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables, a part of Wilderness Fire Productions, where we are cultivating the passion for books, audiobooks, and just storytelling in general. Since time immemorial, we have been storytellers. Everybody has a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. I'm your host, James, and today I am absolutely thrilled to have one of the most recognizable and beloved voices in audiobook narration joining us, John Solo. With over 150 audiobooks under his belt, John has become a go-to narrator for romance, steamy series, emotional YA, and so much more. Whether he's juggling multiple character voices in a heated dialogue scene, delivering heartfelt emotion, or adding that perfect spark of humor, his performances pull listeners right into the story. You've probably lost yourself in his narrations of Kiera Andrews, Ro Horvat, Tavia Lark, DJ Jameson, and countless others. So, let's spark the narrative and give light to the storyteller. John, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. I truly appreciate you.
James, I love you to death. Two things. One, I can't spell idiosyncrasy. There's one. And I challenge you to do it on the spot without looking at your screen, please.
Okay, here we go. So for the listener, because this is audio only, I'm looking straight up at my ceiling. Idiosyncratic. Idiosyncratic.
I'm assuming that's correct.
We're gonna look.
I don't know.
Going back up, Idiosyncratic. Yeah, I got it.
That's awesome. Wow.
Nobody has asked me to do that before, so thank you. There's a first time for everything.
You're welcome, buddy. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited that you're doing this podcast. As you know, I did a podcast for years. Top of the Beard, and at the time, there were not a lot of industry podcasts like this. And I reached out a couple of times to different narrators, anyone that would listen, saying, "Can anyone else do a podcast? Please, let's go."
Yeah.
And I'd started that right after COVID, just as a service, and I obviously to advance my personal career as well, but really as a service, I didn't hear things like this. I wanted to hear them. I truly, absolutely appreciate you doing this. It's awesome. Man. Thank you.
It's my passion project, and I absolutely love just simply talking to people, just hearing their ins and outs, their merits, their flaws, what makes them apart from anybody else. It's just something that I find joy in.
It's pretty awesome. We've talked off the air quite a bit. We're friends, we're buddies, but what's your experience now? How long have you been doing this podcast? And what's your experience? Are you enjoying it? Are you burned out? Tell me about it, please.
Yeah, so I'm very much enjoying the 2.0 version of this, if you will, because if you recall, the very first rendition of the podcast I did, it used to be branded as You Know What I Love. And the goal was to bring people on to talk about things that they loved, and I would ask questions regarding the topic, whether it was, motorcycles, baking, pizza, heavy metal music, or I think one of my most cherished episodes was my father. He and I shared an episode and talked about his passion for blues music. Absolutely loved that one. Fast forward to 2023. So by this point, I'd doing the podcast for about a year. And I was like, "Ooh, I've got this brilliant idea," said the good idea fairy that thumped me over the head with a 2x4. What if I did June is audiobook month dedicated to solely narrators, and I did one guest per day for the entire month of June, since June is audiobook month. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So I, put the post out on Facebook, said, "Hey, I've got this idea. What do you guys want to do? Who wants to be a part of it?" I was flooded with responses in the comments and the DMs alike. I had a plethora of people to fit into this 30-day box, if you will. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to send you emails, so-and-so and so-and-so, all the way down to whoever. Your dates are going to be, from May 1st to May 15th. Those are your recording dates. These episodes will go live in chronological order. Keep a lookout for them, da-da-da-da-da. And I did. I was recording everybody for like 2 weeks straight for the entire month of May and a little bit here and there, but I did it. Every single day of June, there was a different person that came out for June as audiobook month for the You Know What I Love podcast. After that was done, I didn't have anything for July. I was burnt out. I think I did one episode in August, and it was probably my least motivated episode. Just, oh my gosh, I'm so done. I don't want to do this again. And so I stopped. I think I deleted the podcast. And at the time, Spotify was doing something wonky with a different RSS feed. They bought it out or whatever. So I actually lost the ability to grab that podcast. I went, well, that's probably a good thing I stopped them. 2024 comes around. I go on the Audiobooks at Sea Cruise, their first inaugural one, headlined by Joe Leslie Frumkin. And of the 70 or so narrators aboard, there's probably more. I don't know. I don't remember the exact number, but I'd say about a third of them asked me, like, oh, hey, you're James Cheatham, right? Are you still doing that podcast? I'm like, okay, there might be something to this. What can I do differently that is not so like me focused in the title, hence the, you know what I love, but what makes us all unique? What makes us all, not special, but because I've had this longstanding theory, there's no such thing as normal, right? Even my middle daughter will tell you normal is weird and weird is normal, because every single one of us are slightly different than the next person to our left or right. And so I started going into the dictionary, looking at the thesaurus. My tongue will get out of the way. And I was like, strange, weird, idiosyncratic. Okay. Fables. Everybody's got a story to tell. Ooh, I like that. And that's what birthed this idea for the rebranding, Idiosyncratic Fables, where everybody has a story to tell and I want to hear yours. So my focus is just simply that. Everybody has a story. We've all been telling stories since as far back as whatever calendars we're looking at will allow us to go back to. And that's how things come into be. That's how family values are formed. That's how passions are formed, by telling stories. That's what we hold near and dear to our hearts. And by preventing burnout, I limited myself to I told myself I was only going to do one guest a month. And so when I put out another post last year, late fall, early winter, it's like, hey, I have a blank slate for 26. Who wants to be a guest on the show? Once again, another, huge influx of people say, yeah, sign me up. John, I have literally 3 to 4 guests a month going all the way to August of this year. So there's something to this.
Sorry about that. I messed up my mute switch, but now I have it again. Woohoo! I love the fact that you went on, you went to a convention, in essence. I know the cruise, and people recognized you from the podcast, not necessarily from your audiobook work, but from the podcast. I've had that happen a number of times. I did a convention, I can't remember the year, 21, 22, somewhere in there. And my goal actually at this convention was to record my podcast in, I wanted to do it in one of the hotel suites kind of thing, like a conference room, something like that, but they wouldn't allow it. The convention itself said, we can't condone that. And I said, okay, well, I would like to do it in my room then. Is that okay? And they said, that's perfectly fine. So I believe it was a 3 or 4 day convention. All I did for 3 or 4 days was wander around the convention during the early morning. And I would say to authors, narrators, even fans, anyone, hey, I'm John Solo. I do Talk to the Beard. I'd love to have you as a guest. I did a rolling schedule in my hotel room for 3 or 4 days, recording and streaming live Talk to the Beard episodes, one after the other after the other. I believe it came out to 75 guests in 3 or 4 days. I sat up in the hotel room. I had 2 chairs, 2 microphones. I sat up, had my laptop set up. I had the Brigadiers Those are my fans. I had at least 2 to 3 to 4 of them in the room the entire time, so nothing could be said. Because imagine this: you walk up to I'm a male, I'm 6'1.5", 200 pounds. Hey, female author, would you like to come up to my hotel room and record? So it was a little bit awkward, but it ended up being an amazing, cool thing where, I mean, it ended up being the last day I recorded for 12 hours straight. And I had my assistant Trace and a couple other brigadiers wander around and gather the guests at the time, bring them up to my hotel room, one after the other. There were sometimes 2 or 3 guests standing in the back of my hotel room by the door waiting to go on next.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
It was amazing. I'll never do it again. I will say that.
No.
But yeah, that was one of, and no wonder I got burnt out on the show after a little while. We did it for almost 3 years. And that was one of the big ones, one of the big events. But yeah, just one of the crazy things I've done. I'm impressed. This is a cool show. And I'm glad that you're not going to get burnt out right now. But you do sound like you have a busy schedule, and it sometimes becomes a problem when you have so many guests lined up in a row. And if something personal happens, you have to take a week off, 2 weeks off, something like that.
Right.
So everything has to shift. That becomes a nightmare as well.
Right. I recently, probably within the past 2 months, I've actually been contacted by an entertainment agency, not looking to represent me, but because the people they're representing, they're like, hey, we want to get this person in the spotlight. Can we send you his or hers or their media kit to see if we can have them on your show? And yes, please send me their full media kit. I would love that. So we're working with waiting to hear back from their next representative, who is an author who writes YA fantasy, and I'm hoping to have him on the show, which would be fantastic.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of media kits, I never on my show, I never did research in advance, ever. I would ask my assistant Trace, what do you know about this person? And then I would roll in because I didn't want to know too awful much. I wanted to get to know them personally. Now,
Sure.
the show focus was very different and often slapstick. Speaking of which, my media kit has not been updated since I worked with my last acting coach, Sean Pratt.
Okay.
I've not done it. So yeah, you said 150 books. I'm now up to 486 showing in Audible, and I believe it's actually 600 and something with my different pseudonyms.
Okay.
It is so far, but I've not even bothered to update it. I'm not trying to be cocky, but I don't need to at this point. The last time I submitted a media kit was 2020, 2021, somewhere in there, where I was, trying to get work, trying to hit up a publisher. I haven't done it in so long. You reading that, I was giggling in the beginning. I was like, oh my God, I should probably update that, but who the fuck cares?
Well, but regardless, that is an impressive milestone. What would you say your first narration project was like, and what was your approach, or I should say, how has your approach evolved since then?
Well, I got to take a drink for this. Hang on.
Yeah, do it.
So my first narration project was in 2013, and we ran into, I say we, it was me, my wife, Jody, and another buddy who ended up working under several pseudonyms, but one of them was his name, Andrew McFerrin. He was a musician that was recording in my studio at the time. I ran into a friend at a gig. I was a live sound engineer, and we ran into a friend that said he was recording for ACX. I'd never heard of it before. Fascinating to me. I liked audiobooks, but I'd never considered recording them myself. But he said he was making a living at it. Fascinating to me. So I checked it out, and me, my wife, and Andrew McFerrin found a bunch of auditions, and we all recorded 2 or 3 auditions in a day a piece and submitted them. We all got different offers almost immediately. It was amazing. Andrew actually got what was ACX used to do a thing, and I forget the name of it now. Back in the early days, they would offer you $100 per finished hour plus royalties on a book. Do you remember that? Were you around during that time?
No, I didn't start with ACX until late 2018. So they may have shifted their sales model then.
Yeah. This was back in the real early days of ACX. It was only a couple of years old at the time. Andrew nailed one of those deals. So it was kind of like some of the business models now where you get a certain per finished hour and you get royalties on top of it. Same kind of thing. But ACX Audible was actually ponying up that $100 a finished hour themselves. Nothing to do with the author. It was a great deal. Yeah, exactly. Andrew actually got one of those. Jody and I both got 2 different royalty share offers. Mind you, we had no idea how to make an audiobook. None whatsoever. Had no training. I'd listened to a few audiobooks, but we jumped in. We have a recording studio. I'm an audio engineer. We jumped in and started recording them. By the way, I didn't even know that I had to take out pauses in between lines, let alone minimizing breaths, let alone making sure the what I say matches the actual text perfectly. I knew nothing. So those early books and ACX's standards, I've looked back at files that I did early on, like the RMS was so completely off. Like it was ridiculously horrible production quality is what I'm trying to say. But we recorded them. The first one I got, I thought was a paranormal book. Turns out it was a paranormal gay romance book. It surprised me when I started actually doing my pre-read. I was like, uh-oh, because I'm not a gay man, but I love it. Fine, whatever. And it didn't bother me. It just surprised me. But I recorded it. My wife recorded hers. Andrew recorded his. We did that, and Andrew's title was a hit. And suddenly we are making $1,000 a month in royalties.
Oh, wow.
And of course, he get basically our split was he gets half, we get half. We recorded it. He was a narrator. So we're splitting those. And within a couple of months, this thing had, I forget, it was like 4,000 sales, 5,000 sales, somewhere in there.
Wow.
1,000 reviews. It was ridiculous. So suddenly my business model changed. Instead of being an audio production company that was running live sound for bands and lights, we were still doing that, but suddenly this became a larger focus, and we started to focus more on it. So I'm looking at ACX after I realized, oh my goodness, I can make some money at this. And in fact, it's actually like I've always been a reader my entire life. I came from fantasy sci-fi. My wife has an English lit degree. She's very much a reader, so much more than me, so much smarter than me. And this Andrew McFerrin, who amazingly had this talent for doing all sorts of voices, just out of the blue. Had never done this before, but all this came together. So I'm looking at ACX after that. And I find a company that was, they had probably 30 titles up at the time. I forget, 30, 40, 50, it doesn't matter, but a lot of titles. So I approached the company. I sent a message to them and I said, hey, I see you have a lot of titles up. I'd really like to take them on. Almost immediately, without even an interview process or anything like that, they started sending me offers. And it was like 15 offers immediately.
Wow.
Boom, done. And all of them are pay per hour. And I believe the rate was $100 per finished hour at the time. So it wasn't even royalties, but actual money paid out. So I had to juggle. I reached back to them immediately and said, I only have 2 people that can narrate these. They're male romance, all of them. This is going to take us some time. They came back and said, if you want them, figure it out. So I started to reach out to my community of friends, and I'm a musician and an engineer, musician friends. Anyone that wants to, has the ability, and especially if you have acting experience, So fast forward 6 months, suddenly I'm running a recording studio with a booth, kind of. It was a rough booth at the time. Uh, Nothing like I have today. Between 6 and 8 people coming in every day and recording these books. And I'm producing them and we're splitting the money, which is not a lot. $100 a finished hour is far below what we make these days. But
Right.
um, it is what it is. Pretty soon, within a year, we had several hundred titles under our belt because they kept feeding us and we kept looking on ACX and getting other titles. And suddenly I'm running a small business just doing this. My running sound for bands kind of shifted aside. During that time as well, I started taking them on too myself, just trying to narrate other books. I'd never done it before, but kept trying. Um, all that moved forward. 5 or 6 years in, my wife came down with an illness, breast cancer.
Oh, no.
She had to kind of step aside from the business. She was one of our producers. At that point, we were always having a producer ride along in a session. It's not
Right.
like nowadays with punch and roll. Um, she had to step aside. That limited the time I had in the studio. I started to have some health issues as well. Pretty soon it came down to just me. Slowly the actors were kind of dissipating, disappearing, this and that and the other. And suddenly it was just me. I kept going and I started to focus on royalty share work. I wanted to not have to, I wanted some income to come in every month, regardless of if I was working or not. And I had a name at this point in the industry. So I really started to focus on royalty share work. And that really started to take off. And it's something that a lot of narrators don't want to do. They don't want to jump into that side of things because it's risky. But I had a name and I thought I could sell it, and I did. So years later, this is where I'm at. I do a ton of indie work, royalty share work. I still work for pubs, but I have a lot of success with royalty share. A lot of success hooking up with authors that sort of have a name themselves or something I believe in. And I have a name. If I put my name on a project, people are going to buy it. But more importantly, if I combine with an author that also has a name, that's where the magic happens. It's risky, and at times it's very frustrating. Health insurance is a whole nother matter, but it's a very successful business model for us. So I think that's my story in a nutshell.
I love it. So each time you get a book, then walk us through your preparation process. How do you decide on voices for different characters, especially in like dialogue heavy scenes like or multi-voice interactions?
Yeah, I use an assistant for my pre-production, and I will have them read through the project in advance, typically. Depending on the project, there are some that I can't do that with, but if it's a formulaic project, I can have a pre-reader do it. And I will have a list of character descriptions, and I will start to decide from there. I have 20, 25 voices at this point that I can differentiate between enough to actually narrate full chapters in. So I have a pretty good cast in my head of something I can start with. Um, I can go low, I can go high, I can differentiate voices, I can do accents. But 20 to 25 I'm comfy with, that I can start from there and then start to customize them based on the emotion of the scene. But one of the things that I've learned over the years, I can do voices, but the emotion matters the most. And
Yes.
just trying to stay in a range of a voice is very dangerous. So with each voice, when I say I have 20 or 25, that means I can differentiate a voice, and I can also go from low to high with that voice, and I can express emotion while being that person. One of my employees years ago, Andrew McFerrin, said it best. He said, if you can't order a pizza in that character's voice, you can't do the voice.
Ooh, I like that. What would you say some of the biggest challenges are in narrating romance specifically? Like, for example, handling emotional depth, intimate scenes, or distinguishing between all the different male characters?
That's a good question.
I've got a few.
Well, the difference is the challenges for me in the beginning versus the challenges today. The challenges in the beginning were differentiating voices, um, and trying to understand the context of the scene because I'm not a gay man. Um, so sometimes the emotions that are involved, I struggled with. I didn't understand. In fact, I'm not a very emotional man, and trying to understand the emotions in a scene, uh, that was difficult to me. That's actor stuff. That's stuff that you have to learn. If you want to be an actor, you have to learn it. Um, I got through all those struggles. And in fact, one of the things I enjoy most now in narrating romance or any book, is actually living through the emotions of the characters. Because honestly, in my own life, I don't do that very well. This is like a conduit, to feel the emotions that I don't deal with personally on my own very well at all. It's sad, but it's true. Nowadays, dealing with tropes, and formulaic books, um, gets very boring to me. I'm not saying those are bad by any means,
Right.
but I've done, uh, you know, easily over 400 romance books, and reading the same book over and over sometimes is a struggle for me. I really look for authors that are doing something different,
Okay.
something unique, and I'm not. I wish I were better at selecting those projects. I'm not. Um, Especially when they're coming from a publisher, you don't have a lot of time. They send you an offer. They say, "Do you want to do this or not?" And I don't have the time to read through the entire book. And sometimes I make mistakes. It's just that simple. But uh, the boredom of that sometimes. One of my Sean Pratt. I refer to him a lot. He was my favorite acting coach that I've had. He used to read in the beginning of his career a lot of westerns. Um, uh, in fact, Louis L'Amour.
Oh yeah.
He did almost all of his books in audio. And I was like, when I was first talking to him about this, I was like, dude, that's amazing. That'd be an incredible career. And he said, I got bored with it. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? I'd kill to have that. And he went through it like this. He's like, every time the silent man rolls into town, and he runs into the woman that's having the issue in town, and he gets hired, and for far less money than he's worth. And there's the sheriff that's bad, and like he rolls through all these tropes. And he's like, after you tell that story 100 times, you got to move on to something else. That's actually how Sean ran into what he's famous for now, which is nonfiction.
Right.
He wanted something different, and he was begging publishers for it, and he got it. Telling the same story over and over is, after a while, no matter how good the story is, if it's the same one over and over, it gets really boring. And in this genre, one of the things that listeners come back to over and over again is the comfort listen, and it's the same story over and over. So finding those little diamonds in the rough is how I think of it. Finding somebody that's going to tell that romantic story, but a bit differently. They're not going to be formulaic. Oh, that is like that's the cream right there. It's something
Yeah.
different. And I don't want to name names of authors or anything like that, but I've run into them, and man, I pursue them with a passion. And I beg them to, please let me do this for royalty share, please. Like, it's actually hard to get royalty share these days for someone like me, because I can sell some books. So
Yeah.
it might not be as profitable for an author to give me that. But yeah, those are the ones that, like, I just love. I just love them. Anyways, I hope that answers your question. It was a good
It
one.
did.
I'm sorry it was so long-winded.
Hey, you owe me no apology. It just actually kind of rolls right into the next one I've got lined up for you. You've worked on series like Kiera Andrews' A Forbidden Rumspringa or Tavia Lark's Perilous Courts. How do you maintain consistency in character voices across multiple books in a series?
That's another good question. First off, I record a sample of the character voice in the beginning, and I use the Rainbow script, which is very important to me. This is something I've run into a lot of times when I'm working on dual narrations, where a narrator will record a voice and they will share it with me, and it's a line that the character says in a book, which is useful to a point. It's fine. The problem is the inconsistency. Well, sorry, looking for consistencies in vowel sounds and pronunciations and pacing. So if a character, what am I looking at right here? I'm just going to read. I have categories because I pulled up Audible to see how many books I'd done.
Sure.
If a character says, and I'm going to do this in a character voice, comedy and humor, education and learning, erotica, LGBTQ plus. That's fine. That's helpful. But if I say, when the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, they act as a prism and form a rainbow. That gives me all the vowel sounds that I need. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm actually glad you brought that up, because every time I've listened to you, behind the scenes doing these character voice preparations, you inspire me to make one of my own. So I've got it right here on a small slip of paper that I use to record my own character voices. And it's goofy as all get up. Thin Mints are the world's greatest Girl Scout cookies, especially when you put them in the freezer, and I will die on that hill. And so using that phrase for all the different character voices, their fluctuations in dialogue, their mannerisms, all that comes into play when I can read those 3 sentences.
Yep. It makes all the difference in the world. So I record the character voice in the beginning using the Rainbow script. And I forget what website that came. There's a website that is specifically for accents that uses that Rainbow script. And I didn't come up with it. It's not my invention by any stretch. But I use it to get the consistency for the character voices. And when I record it that way, typically in the beginning or the end of it, I will also say, in the beginning, I'll say the character's name, especially if there's a weird pronunciation. So, for instance, I've got Arriva. That's a character name. When the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, they act as a prism and form a rainbow. I'm going to stay low. I'm going to go a little slower pacing than normal, and I'm going to keep the consistent vowel sounds, and I'm going to accent everything a bit tighter. So I've given the name in the beginning, so I know how to pronounce the character's name every time correctly. I'm doing the Rainbow script so I can hear how it sounds. Then I'm giving notes at the end, and I'm going to say what character voice I'm doing. So I have, everybody has their character voice references.
Of course.
And then I'm going to say low or high, and then I'm going to say anything specific about, if he's going to stay tight the entire time, if he's going to be loose, if he's going to be round like that, if he's going to be gravelly like that, whatever it is, I'm going to give those at the end. And typically in a production, let's say I recorded book 1 in 2023. Now it's 2026 and I'm going to record book 2. And let's say I'm doing an romance, and let's say I'm having to do the classic romance, 2 POVs. So one character voice for chapter 1, another character voice for chapter 2.
Right.
When I'm starting that project, and every day when I start recording that project again, it's going to take 3 or 4 or 5 days to record the whole thing. I'm going to listen to references from in the beginning from the last book, chapter 1 versus chapter 2. And then every day before I start recording again, I'm going to listen to references from yesterday's recording just to get it back again. Then when character voices come up in each one, side characters, that sort of thing, I'm going to play that reference. Not from yesterday's recording, but the character voice that I recorded in the beginning.
Right.
Another big thing that happens, because I'm an older man, I'm 48. My voice has changed over the last 13 years of recording. So if I recorded a character voice 5 years ago, I might have to re-record another reference again 5 years later. It might have changed. And listeners are pretty forgiving of that, as long as it's consistent in the book itself.
Right.
So, for instance, my lower voice Used to be down here if I was going to do a lower voice, but now I can do down here because I'm a lot older and it's getting lower. And I can change that character voice over time. From, one book to the next, it might change slightly. More importantly, I might get better, you know? I might just improve. Now, I don't want to be too drastic about it. A good example of that is I have a very successful series that is not romance. It's called Bubba the Monster Hunter. It's
Okay.
something I'm very fond of. And he started out as a caricature of Larry the Cable Guy. It's first person narration. But when he started out, it was right up here. That's what I was doing the entire time. I'm Bubba the Monster Hunter. Woo! But now he's gotten a bit lower. He's gotten a bit more mature. He's still doing this thing the entire time, but he's a little lower. And the character has gotten a little lower over time. He's gotten a bit older. And I've gotten a lot better about making that voice fucking perfect. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So all of those things matter, but character consistency is something that is the most important thing to me. That can completely ruin an audiobook. Completely.
Oh, yeah.
It's something I paid close attention to early on, and it's something that's very important to me. But anyways, yeah. Thanks for the question. I love it.
You're welcome. So, Bubba notwithstanding, out of all of the books you've narrated, which one stands out as your favorite and why?
This is such a dangerous question.
And for fans of John Solo, you know why it's a dangerous question.
Two answers. I'm going to give two here, and I'm sorry for anybody that I don't reference here because I have a lot of books that I really loved, and I have some that I didn't love, and I still narrated because that's what I get paid to do. That being said, the first and best answer is always the last book that you did. That's just the way it works. But fortunately, the last book that I did that I was that fond of, I see the second book in the series, but I want to get the first book. Sylvana Falcon is the author. And I believe that's the second book, The World's Wimpiest Vampire, which is the one I just did. But the first book is freaking amazing as well. Let me see where that is. Scrolling down. Hell's Most Incompetent Demon, Supernatural Suckers, Book 1 by Sylvana Falcon. It's there's so many things I loved about this book. It's funny. It's freaking hilarious. It's romance. Anyone that's read romance, there's this formula that goes into it. One of it is sex before 60. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
What it means is, in a romance book, there needs to be sex before 60% of the book. It's and clean romance is an exception to that rule. But if there's going to be on-screen sex and it's going to be explicit, the formula is sex before 60%. But this didn't follow that rule. And I loved that about it because when it finally happened, it was such a payoff. And it was awesome. It just didn't follow all the formulas. It just didn't. And I loved that. It was so unique, so different. And the humor in it was so unexpectedly cool. Like it just surprised the hell out of me. Very rarely do I read a romance book these days where it surprises me. And this did around every corner. Nothing was as expected. It was light. It was like a palate cleanser. I loved it. And I just did book 2. What was the name of that one? Give me a second. It was even better. Like this author is just the world's wimpiest vampire. And it surprised me again. It's tight. It's to the point. It was well edited. It was hilarious, and it surprised me. Boom, done. But my second answer is Whisper by Tal Bauer. I actually approached Tantor Media about that book because I had narrated a previous series for Taubauer, and it was some of the best material I'd ever read in all the right ways. It was certainly not a comedy by any stretch, but it didn't follow any of the formulas. There was a lot of action. I really liked that about it. It was in some of the romance stuff, there's really not a lot that happens action wise. It's more about how the characters feel. And there are certainly feelings in that book, but it was far more about the action. And I really appreciated that. But Whisper was one of the top selling romances of all time. And I'd worked for this author before, and I knew that it was going to hit this publisher. So I hit them up in advance and said, I would love to do this. If it comes across, please just let me audition. I would knock it out of the park. When I said knock it out of the park, I had no idea what I was getting into. The book was, I believe, over 20 hours long, somewhere in there. It was a long book. It dealt with 9/11 and subsequent actions over the next few years beyond that, tracking down terrorists. And it had a gorgeous romance plot kind of intertwined into that.
Sure.
In fact, if I remember correctly, I think you rode along on a couple of sessions during that thing years ago.
I think I did. Yeah.
It's been a lot of years. It was the most challenging book I've ever done in a lot of ways. One, just accents alone. There were so many different accents. So many different characters, well over 100 that I had to voice, and deep emotional breaking. It's the only time in my entire career that I had to take a week off afterwards to recover emotionally. When I finished that project, I took a week off. I went out to my sponsor's house. I camped out at his place for a few days, and I just got away from the world. It drained everything from me that I could possibly have drained. I was done. I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't function. It tore me to pieces. Not only the story, but also the effort and everything else. And another struggle for me was while recording it, I felt like I wasn't doing it justice the entire time. Like I was embarrassed. I felt like I'd gotten myself in over my head. I felt like this was too much of a challenge, and I wanted to apologize to the world. At the end of the day, I've not listened to the entire thing ever. I have gone back and listened to moments and chapters, and I did a pretty good job. It was all right. And to this day, still, occasionally, I don't know if you get this or not, but I do. Very frequently, fans will reach out to me and say, thank you for this, thank you for that. And it means the world to me every time. That book, still to this day, are the most of those I ever get, still to this day. Also, in some of the forums on Facebook that I frequent of listeners, more often than not, when people talk about that book, they're asking, is this safe? Can I go listen to this? I know it is gut wrenching. People that answer say one of two things. It's not safe. It will rip your heart out. Or that's the best book I've ever listened to, and I'll never listen to it again. It's hard to connect those dots, but I understand it. That thing was a piece of art. I will say that. A piece of art. I loved it. So there you go. Another long-winded answer.
No worries at all. Absolutely love it. As someone who is so deeply involved in romance books, what trends have you noticed in the genre over the years? And are there any subgenres or themes you're excited about right now?
You know what? One of the trends that I saw early on was impreg. Are you familiar with that one?
That I am. You and I forget the gentleman's name, Declan something, does impreg.
Yeah, Declan Winters.
Yep, that's the guy, Declan Winters.
He's a baby compared to me.
I know him by his real name, but I don't want to confuse.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Back in the beginning, impreg was something that surprised me. Uh, so I started narrating impreg very early on in my career. It was huge back then. And I was narrating for a couple of the biggest authors in the industry with that. And I didn't know what I was getting into. Honestly, when I first said yes to the first one, I didn't realize that there were babies going to be coming out of men's butts. I didn't understand that. Turns out that's the entire genre. And there's a formula behind it. And in the beginning, I read easily 50 to 60 of these over the course of a year. And I was making really good money at it. In fact, so much so that one of my author friends gave me an award. I got the Butt Baby Award. It was a butt baby. They drew a picture of me. I had a crown. It was awesome. But that was an early trend in the industry. And still to this day, like I see why people enjoy it, but I will never truly understand it. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of them, and I'm not opposed to doing more as far as that goes, but I will never quite totally grok that that thing. But that was an early trend. These days, what I'm seeing, there's a lot of trends. Like for instance, right now we're in the hockey phase. Everybody loves the hockey romance. And you'll see that roll out. But one of the biggest ones that I've seen develop are trigger warnings. This is not something that we saw early on. If I narrated a book in 2015, there were absolutely none of that. You wouldn't see a trigger warning at the beginning of a book. And nowadays, I would say easily 75% of the books that I narrate, there are trigger warnings at the beginning. And sometimes to the point where, like, I don't even understand. It's like, somebody drives down the road in this book, that sort of thing. It kind of takes I understand the concept behind it. Certainly, I don't want people to get hurt. I don't want people to, run into something they don't want to see. But it kind of takes the actual like surprise out of a book to me sometimes too. So I can see where they're going with it. I don't disagree with it, but sometimes they kind of go over the top with those. And that's a new trend that I've seen.
Almost like it loses its magic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the things with romance is people want a comfort read. They want to know what they're going to read in advance. That's when I read something for pleasure, what I want is to be surprised. But I also understand, like, there are things that are triggering to me. Everybody has them. And I can understand warning in advance for that. Sometimes it goes a little too far.
Okay. So let's start to wrap it up here. I got about 3 more questions for you. For aspiring audiobook narrators that are listening to us right now, what advice would you give as far as like skills, tools that are essential to break into the industry?
Well, you had me until the very end there. To break into the industry, that's an entirely different matter. I've just like you do and everybody else, where, you're at a party and somebody says, "What do you do?" And you say, "I'm an audiobook narrator." They're like, "Oh my God, I've always wanted," people tell me that I have a great voice. How do you get into that? I don't know. I truly don't. At this point, I think that if you're passionate about something and it's something that you do late at night when no one else is around because you have to, you'll figure out a way to make this. You'll figure out a way to make it work. The problem is that for the most part, the mechanics of being an audiobook narrator, they're very boring. And you sit in a small, dark room. It's fairly soundproofed. It's a little uncomfortable. And sometimes you read stuff that you don't want to read. And you have to do it for hours a day. And you have to maintain an athletic voice. It's literally being an athlete with your voice. And that takes a lot of health preparation. You really have to love this to do it. You have to. If you don't,
Right.
it will drive you mad. This is, it's not fun if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Um,
And like
so,
you mentioned earlier in the show, that consistency is key. The listeners can tell when a voice is not consistent.
yeah. That health aesthetic alone is something that a lot of people don't understand. So if you want to break in, and I get a lot of questions all the time in Discord. You've been in my crowd. New
Yeah.
narrators will pop in. I will talk to anyone ever, and I'll give them all the advice I possibly can. Um, I don't think that ACX is a way to break in at this point. I truly don't. I don't think there's a lot of great stuff on there, but it's maybe a possibility. I also used sites like Odesk. I don't think that's around anymore. Elance, that sort of thing. I used those in the beginning too to try and find work. But I think the key here is not trying to make money in the beginning, because you're not going to.
Right.
You're just not. I got lucky. Lightning struck. Sometimes that happens. But it wasn't even on my book. You know, it took
Right.
me a long time. I remember getting really excited to work for $100 a finished hour. And that's chump change now.
Yeah.
If you really love it, my second piece of advice, maybe ACX is the way, but you go royalty share, and you take some risks, and you put in hundreds of hours worth of work without getting much in return. You look at your sales and see that this book that you just spent 40 hours on only sold 2 books. If you still love it, you're still going to do it.
Right.
That's where it starts. But just, you have to love it. You have to have a passion for it. If you don't, give it up. This is not a get rich quick scheme. It's just
No.
not.
It is 100% a marathon.
Absolutely, man. But for those like us, we've talked about this before, me and you, and some of my buddies. There are so few people that actually do this at our level in the world. So few people.
Right.
If you're one of us, welcome, man. We want you. We
Glad
really
you're here.
do. It's a great crowd, and we're for the most part pretty good people. And being able to talk to somebody like you that gets it, dude, that is gold to me.
If you could narrate any book that has not been turned into an audiobook yet, what would it be and why?
I have 2, and I've been trying to pump
Ooh.
Tantor recently because first is um, Robert, I believe, Aspirin. Are you familiar with those?
No.
Here we go. Pulling it up. I'm just trying to get the title right here.
Yeah.
It's the Myth series is what it is. Another fine myth, myth directions, myth conceptions. Those were some of my favorite books when I was a kid. They are fantasy light comedies, and they are hilarious. The first one came out in '78, it looks like. And they're books. They've never been put into audiobook fashion that I know of. And I believe that they just came through a large scale purchase with, it's not Tantor, but that RB Media.
Right.
And I've been pumping them for it really hard. I would kill to do those things. Oh my goodness. I just love them. And the second one, dude, I cannot remember the author's name now. And I'm not going to be able to think of it. I know I won't, because I always forget his name. There was a series that my father used to love. It was a hunter, an old hunting guy, and he used to write articles for hunting magazines in the late 70s and early 80s. And he put out a few books, and I just absolutely loved them. I'll get back to you off the air once I remember his name again. I was just talking to Tantor about this recently because I think that they just bought his bundles as well. Not positive on that, but I think it happened.
Okay.
And they've not been put into audiobooks, and I would absolutely kill to do those. On the back into anything by Robert Heinlein, anything. I don't care what it is. I would absolutely die to do those. And Sean Pratt did most of them already, but that was back in the late 80s and early 90s. They're due to be done again, and I would do them better. So fuck you, Sean. So,
and he means that with all the love in his heart, Sean.
I listened to his version of Starship Troopers, and it didn't suck, but I know I can do it better.
All right, to wrap up, What's next for you? Do you have any upcoming projects or new directions you're exploring in your career?
Um, Actually, I'm exploring quite a few new directions. I have been very specifically trying to change my stream of work. I want to do romance, but I'm trying to be much more selective these days. I'm not fond of doing duels typically. It's just not something I enjoy doing. I like to tell the entire story and I feel disconnected. And I've done a lot of those over the last couple of years. Trying to phase out of that. I'm certainly not going to, I have a lot of series work that I'm in the middle of. It'll take me a year or two to phase out, but it is what it is. But I'm trying to phase out of that. And I'm trying to phase out of, um, frankly, working so much. I would like to be able to, somebody approaches me with a project and I can actually read the book and then say yes. Instead of somebody approaches me with a project, I check out the first chapter and then I say yes. I would very much like to be in that situation.
Okay.
And I'm getting there. With my royalty stream at this point, I'm making enough money. I can do it. I still have so many series that I'm in the middle of that I need to wrap up. That's going to take quite a bit of my time. But I'm going to not be so much of a yes man in the future. I want to control a bit more about what I put my name on. There's an author named Lynn Gala, Gala. And she just recently wrote a third book in a series. I believe the series is Earth Fathers Are Weird. Speaking of impreg, by the way, it's Impreg Tentacles. And it is fantastic. It's so good. It's so good. I just approached her because she cannot afford to pay me. And I approached her and begged her for a royalty share because it's so good. I just don't freaking care. I don't care if it sells 2 copies.
Yeah.
I want to do it. In fact, it'll sell a lot more than that. She's pretty popular. And she's agreed to let me do that. Also, I am finishing up currently. Let me look at the name. Soul Management Bureau Book 1, How to Reap. Give me a second to get the whole title. How to Reap a Soul and Fail Miserably by April Kelly. It's a new author to me. It's book 1 and it's hilarious. So I'm very proud of that. I also have a couple of Bubba books coming up here, season 6 of that, which is awesome. And finally, it's called it's the Meth Magician series.
Geez.
Which is also just fantastic. Where are you, Bob? Look at that, Bob McCow. There we go. It's the Jubal County Saga books, is what it is. Book 3 is Dusty Roads. I'm about to work on that. And yeah, the Meth Magician, he has to use meth so he gets his magical abilities. Mind you, that's also not romance at all. It's just urban fantasy, and I freaking love it. And finally, since I'm talking so much, Flocks of One from John Morano. That is a children's book.
Hey.
Book 4 of that series. That's really fun because he likes to have sound effects in it, and I don't get to do that very much.
What fun.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's where I'm at. What are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm working on my 5th ever lit RPG, and it's the 5th book in a 6-book series called Elsewhere by Doug Losey. Well, the series is Elsewhere because that was the premiere book. The 5th book is now called Shattered Worlds, which hasn't even been released in ebook yet. So we're hoping to time it just right to where we can get the ebook, paperback, and audio released at the exact same time.
That is really difficult to do, by the way.
Yeah.
But also, dude, lit RPG. Good for you, man. That's awesome.
I'll talk more about that offline. We need to draw this thing to a close.
Sweet.
So, and that is a wrap on this fantastic conversation with the one and only John Solo. John, thank you again for sharing your journey, your process, your favorite projects, and all those behind the mic insights. It's been such a treat hearing from you directly. To our listeners, if you haven't already dived into one of John's audiobooks, do yourself a favor. Head over to Audible or your favorite platform and start with something like Forbidden Rumspringa, The Christmas Deal, or any of the Perilous Court series, you won't regret it. His voice really does make the stories come alive in ways that just stick with you. John, where can folks find you and your work online?
Online?
Mm-hmm.
Hell, I don't know.
Well, I was hoping for a website or something.
I guess on Audible. I have a website, but there ain't nothing on there. Go to Audible. Yeah, good luck. But I'm out there somewhere.
Awesome. Then I will do my due diligence, listener, make sure I've got all the applicable links for you. And as always, thank you for each and every one of you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to please rate, review, and subscribe because it helps us reach more storytellers just like you. Drop us a line on socials or email about who you'd love to hear next, or if you would like to be a guest on the show. Also, I host a Discord server where I showcase my behind-the-scenes work of audiobook narration, so please click on the link in the show notes because I would love to have you as a part of that community. And as always, everybody has a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. So until I talk to you next time, dear listener, peace be with you.